Kal Halal, Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Makakodash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Grimmauld Stone who taught me this truth. Salutations to the Akim pushing this word in all sincerity and all honesty for that penny a day, and to the men, women, and children who are trying to do the right thing, who have been foreordained, to be vessels of mercy, through Yahushai's sacrifice, to be a part of that large multitude who have been foreordained to be delivered. Shalom. This lesson is inspired, through the Spirit by the quote you see here on the screen. It's a quote from a movie, one of the Harry Potter films, by brothers or sisters watch that movie, Dumbledore. I mean, even if you don't watch, Harry Potter, you know who Dumbledore is. But anyways, just get into the quote. It says, "Dark and difficult times lie ahead. Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy." Right? So this quote is very, very applicable, to us in this truth, because we know that dark and difficult times lie ahead. The scriptures call it time of Jacob's trouble. It's described in Daniel chapter 12 as, but I thought, let me just get it. Let's just get it. Let's get Daniel chapter 12, right? The dark and difficult times that lie ahead. Daniel chapter 12 and verse 1, "And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book," which is, the elect. Right? And if we go to Jeremiah chapter 30, speaks about also the time of trouble. Jeremiah chapter 30, and I read from verse 5. "For this, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask now and see whether a man does travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he will be saved out of it." This also speaks about, that same time. If we go to Amos, I believe it's chapter 5 and verse 18, speaking about the day of the Lord, it says, "Woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord." Those dark and difficult times that are coming will lead into the day of the Lord, which is going to be dark. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light, because it's going to be a difficult time. Civil unrest, famine, wars, pestilences, right? The Lord releasing, certain demonic spirits, wild animal would newly created, as I said, I believe it's Sirach chapter 32, right? Or is it 39? "As if a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned his hand on the wall and a serpent bit him, shall not the day of the Lord be darkness and not light, even very dark and no brightness in it?" Right? So if we go back to the quote, these are the dark and difficult times that lie ahead. Right? And on the other side of the dark and difficult time is the kingdom of heaven. Right? The elect are going to be delivered, out of this time. Right? And it says, soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy, because there's a time of trial that's coming with those difficult times. There's a trial, and that trial is the trial of man's fidelity and man's faith. Right? I was speaking specifically about the mark of the beast, which is the CHIP, the mark of CHIP, which will come along, with the CBDC, or the digital currencies that are being pushed by nations worldwide. That's what it's going to be, right? A choice between what is right and what is easy, because it's easy to give it to the flesh. It's easy to bow to your lusts, your desires, your wants, your needs, right? It is hard and very difficult, right, to choose to neglect the flesh, to choose to neglect your family, to choose to neglect your children, your woman. Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy. Right? So let's get into the scriptures again. Revelation chapter 3 verse 10, "Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that are upon the face of the earth. Right? That time of temptation, that hour of temptation, is gonna put two choices before you, what is right and what is easy. We're gonna read 3 examples, from the scriptures of righteous men and women who have been put in their own hour of temptation to choose between what is right and what is easy, and they chose what was right. Right? So we should use these things, as encouragement, faith booster to follow in the right path. We're going to start here in Daniel chapter 3, verse 12, with the case of the 3 Hebrew boys. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set. We're going to start, verse 12. All right, so this is, one of the men of Babylon complaining to the king about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy God, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye shall fall down and worship the image which I have made. Right? Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Right? So, we will be, required to serve the image of this beast that exists right now, which is the revival of the Roman Empire, which is a system built, through the influence of the spiritual demon Satan. Scripture said that, the Esau, comes after the power and the working of Satan. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If so be, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the fire furnace, he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it wont to be heated. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the fire furnace. Then these men bound their coats, their hosen, their hats, and their other garments, and they were cast into the midst of the fire furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flames of fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound in the midst of the burning fire furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spake, and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast 3 men into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. Right? And the form of the 4th is like unto the Son of God. Right? So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were delivered, right, from the king's commandment and the king's punishment. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fire furnace and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. Then Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego came forth out of the midst of the fire. Right? So there are certain, of the elect whom the Heavenly Father will deliver, from, let's say, for example, the guillotines or some other whatever form of death, will be prescribed to those who don't bow, to the image of the beast or to the name of the beast or to take his mark. All right? Let's read another example. This is from 2 Maccabees chapter 7, verse 1. It came to pass also that 7 brethren with their mother were taken and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips. But one of them that spake first said thus, Why wouldest thou ask or learn? What wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers. Then the king, being in a rage, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot, which forthwith being heated, he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first, and to cut off the outmost parts of his body, the rest of his brethren and his mother looking on. Now when he was thus maimed and all his members, he commanded him, being yet alive, to be brought to the fire, to be fried in the pan. And as the vapor of the pan was for a good space dispersed, they exhorted one another with the mother to die manfully, saying thus, The Lord God looketh upon us, and in truth hath comforted us. And as Moses in his song, which witnessed to their faces, declared, saying, And he shall be comforted in his servants. So when the first was dead, after this manner they brought the second to make him a mocking stock. And when they had pulled off the skin off his head with the hair, they asked him, Wilt thou eat before thou be punished throughout every member of thy body? But he answered in his own language and said, No. Wherefore he also received the next torment in order as the former did. And when he was at the last gasp, he said, Thou like a fury takest us out of this life, but the King of the world shall raise us up, because they knew and believed in reincarnation, right? Who have died for his law unto everlasting life. They knew the reward. After him was the third made a mocking stock, and when he was required, he put out his tongue, and that right soon, holding forth his hands manfully, and said courageously, These I had from heaven, and for his laws I despised them, and from him I hope to receive them again. Insomuch that the king and they that were with him marveled at the young man's courage, for that he nothing regarded the pains. He wasn't even feeling the pain. All right? Now when this man was dead also, they tormented and mangled the fourth in like manner. So when he was ready to die, he said, Thus it is good, being put to death by men, to look for hope from Yahweh, to be raised up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life. Yeah, these Edomites won't be a part of the kingdom, yo. They're going to be punished severely for 1,000 years, and then they're going to be eradicated. You know, they will have no resurrection to life. The other nations, after that 1,000-year period of slavery in the kingdom, they are going to have, you know, their lands, you know, their borders, you know, so long as they keep the laws. And they're going to be happy to keep the laws of the Heavenly Father. It says, afterward they brought the fifth also and mangled him. Then looked he unto the king and said, Thou hast power over men, thou art corrupt, thou doest what thou wilt, yet think not that our nation is forsaken of God. But abide a while, and behold his great power, how he will torment thee and thy seed. And after him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die, said, Be not deceived without cause, for we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against our God. Therefore marvelous things are done unto us. But think not thou that takest in hand to strive against that God, that thou shalt escape unpunished. But the mother was marvelous above all, and worthy of honorable memory. For when she saw her 7 sons slain within the space of 1 day, she bare with a good courage, because of the hope she had in the Lord. Yea, she exhorted every one of them in her own language, filled with courageous spirits, and stirring up her womanish thoughts, and with a manly stomach, she said unto them, I cannot tell how ye came into my womb, for I neither gave you breath nor life, neither was it I that formed the members of every one of you, but doubtless the Creator of the world, who formed the generation of man, and found out the things of all the beginnings, the beginning of all things, will also of his own mercy give you breath and life again, as you know, regard not yourselves for his law's sake. All right? We're going to read one final example. This is 2 Maccabees chapter 6. So this is the previous chapter. It says, Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers and not to live after the laws of God. Right? Which you are going to be compelled. to take that CHIP, to take that charagma, you're going to be compelled, to forsake your faith, right? And to pollute the temple in Jerusalem, to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympius, and that in garrison of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. Then the coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people. But the temple was filled with riot and revelings by the Gentiles who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful. The altar also was filled with profane things which the law forbiddeth, neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. And in the day of the king's birth, every month they were brought by bitter constraint, meaning forcibly, to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled, right, again forced to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy. No people do it willingly. Just Sunday, last week Sunday, they had Jamaica Carnival, and the women, came out in their decorated bikinis, pretty much naked out there, breasts outside, vaginas outside, everything's just showing, So our people do it willingly now, The 2/3 of our people do it willingly now, or the unbelievers, right? But back then, when it was just introduced to us, the majority of people resisted, and they were forced to do it anyway. But you still had some that willingly kept it, willingly went after the gods, the Greeks. Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man hence seeing the present misery. For there were 2 women brought who had circumcised their children, whom when they had openly led round about the city, the babes hanging at their breasts, they cast them down headlong from the wall. And others they had run together into caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day secretly, being discovered to Philip, were all burnt together, because they made a conscience to help themselves for the honor of the most sacred day. Now I beseech those that read this book, that they be not discouraged for these calamities, right? But that they judge those punishment not for our destruction, but for a chastening of our nation. For it is a token of his great goodness, when wicked doers are not suffered any long time, but forthwith punished. For not as with other nations, whom the Lord patiently forbear to punish, till they be in the fullness of their sins, so dealeth he with us. Lest that being come to the height of sin, afterward he should take vengeance of us. And therefore he never withdraweth his mercy from us. And though he punish us with adversity, yet doeth he never forsake his people. But let this that we have spoken be a warning for us, right? And now we will come to the declaring of the matter in a few words. Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man, and of a well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth to eat swine's flesh. But he, choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such an abomination, spit it forth, and came of his own accord to the torment, as it behooved them to come that are resolute to stand out against such things, and are not lawful for the love of life to be tasted. But they that had the charge of the wicked feast, for the old acquaintances they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use, right? And make as if he did eat of the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king. So pretend to eat it. Eat your own meat, but pretend to eat it, right? Then in doing so, he might be delivered from death, and for the old friendship with them find favor. But he began to consider discreetly, as became his age and excellency of his ancient years, and the honor of his grey head, whereunto he was come, and his most honest education from a child, or rather the holy law made and given by God. Therefore he answered accordingly, and willed them straightway to send him to the grave. For it becometh not our age, said he, in any wise to dissemble. whereby many young persons might think that Eleazar, being 80 years old and 90 years old now, were now gone to a strange religion. And so they see through mine hypocrisy a desire to live a little time and a moment longer should be deceived by me, and I get a stain in mine old age and make it abominable. For though for the present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, yet should I not escape the hand of the Almighty, neither alive nor dead. Wherefore now, manfully changing this life, I will shew myself such as one as age requireth, and leave a notable example to such as be young to die willingly and courageously for the honorable and holy laws. And when he had said these words, immediately he went to the torment. So these are three, solid examples, that brothers and sisters, can bear in mind. And we're just going to read the quote another time and wrap up. Dark and difficult times lay ahead. Soon we must face the choice between what is right and what is easy. Hopefully this was edifying, a little bit long, but hopefully through the Spirit, y'all bear with me. Shalom.